houses in New York show them this lighting is terrible. I know. I'm sitting, it's 4 o'clock and the light is hitting me weird. I'm thinking about moving the car just to get a better view, but I'm sitting in front of a house where I was supposed to show it and the seller changed their mind. So basically waiting here for all the people who didn't get noticed that the showing is canceled. So I may have to stop early if someone shows up and just let them know. It sucks. That's part of the business. I really don't want to be here, but whatever, that's what happened. Got a question about lease options. So lease options are one of the 4 tools of creative finance, at least that I believe. 4 tools of creative finance. Shoot. Yeah, crap, somebody's here. Let me pause. Oh, maybe I'll just tell this guy while we're on the phone. Give this guy the bad news because I feel bad. 4 tools of creative finances, I know it, are subject to, owner finance from the seller, owner finance to the buyer, and lease options. Hold on a second. Hey,
buddy.
Open house was canceled.
Cancel.
Guy won't let me in. I mean, he doesn't live there, but he's not coming.
Mike.
I'm Mike. What's your name?
Roger.
Roger. I'm sorry. I sent that notice, but I couldn't get everybody. That's why I'm here.
Oh, and so what's the deal?
The house is vacant. Been vacant for a long time. It's a disaster inside. Tremendous property. It's 100 wide by 350 deep. And I got some offers to try to obtain, and I'll get more. I'm trying to get inside. I don't know.
How much you trying to get for it? I'm the one that was trying to buy the property from you from Hempstead.
Okay, I think that actually was a pause. So 4 tools of creative finance, as we said. Subject to, owner financing from the seller, lease options, and owner financing to the buyer as a seller. I think only 2 of them work in New York. Subject to, really almost impossible in New York because of the way title companies work here and the way attorneys represent sellers. Lease option to the buyer, you cannot be the bank in New York, impossible. It takes a dozen years to foreclose or more. But lease options work, and certainly you can owner finance from the seller. So important to understand what lease options are and how they work. So the basic idea of a lease option, as a sort of a 10,000 foot overview, is that I'm going to find an owner buyer, a tenant buyer who wants to lease with an option to buy, and because of that, you were able to get some money. So I actually sold one of my first houses. My first house, I think I sold to a rent-to-own buyer. The problem with lease options in New York specifically is because our price points are very high, and because the taxes are very high, very often the numbers don't work. The idea is that I'm going to find someone who's going to pay me enough rent to cover what the payment was or what my payment will be to the seller, and usually which covers the seller's payment. But because, our price points are $500,000-$600,000 here, you're already talking about $3,000 in debt service before the $1,000 a month in taxes. $4,000 already of Long Island are going to be too much for a tenant buyer to pay. Sometimes it can work, but you're not going to be cash flow positive. Sometimes it could be $5,000 just to cover, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, if what the seller is paying. So very hard to make it work here. Very hard. Much easier in a place like Lubbock. Sorry, where the principal, interest, tax, and insurance in certain parts of the country are $600, $700, $800. You want to rent it for $1,200 as a spread. Here by us, if the principal, interest, tax, insurance is $4,000, $5,000, sometimes it's hard to find rental income that's going to more than cover it. So much harder in New York with our higher price points and higher taxes. Most things are harder in New York because of the higher price points and harder taxes, right? The idea that we can rent, if we have a flip that goes bad and we can rent it out, doesn't always work here for the same reason, right? Because my numbers are not going to work. They're not going to be cash flow positive based on the rent. The rent is not going to cover what my monthly payment's going to be. So it is interesting. I did it once. I had a strange property. It was like an illegal 3-family, and one of the tenants had the biggest unit, and we did a rent with an option to buy. Their credit was pretty good. Their income was pretty good. They had some issue with their credit. They fixed up over a year, and then they bought it. They got a great deal. I'm saying they probably have tons of equity. This was many, many years ago. So it can make sense, but you really have to work the numbers and you really have to know the taxes. I had a deal that almost worked in Hempstead where I wanted to do a lease option on it, but the village taxes were like $600 a month, and that just blew up the whole deal. It just didn't make sense. Remember, your rent has to cover whatever the payments are. So the lease options go both ways. I can lease option a property from a seller. So a seller has a property, he's got a payment on it. I say, listen, I'll rent it for, let's say, whatever you're paying in your payment, and I'll buy it for X price. And then then once I have that lease option from the seller, I can wholesale that lease option to somebody else if the numbers really make sense. I also have the option of lease optioning it to a buyer. So that's called the sandwich lease option, where I'm lease optioning from the seller, and then I'm doing a lease option at a higher amount to a buyer. I'm in the middle. I'm in the sandwich. I'm the meat in the sandwich. But again, the numbers have to work, and it is harder to make it work in most parts of our area. You have to find the lower price points, $200,000-$300,000 areas for it to even possibly work. Even there, it might not work if the taxes are too high. So that's how lease options work, but they are much harder to work in New York, much harder, because of the reasons we just discussed. So I got more people coming to this open house that was canceled. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com or learntoflipandwholesale.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes have really been helping, getting a lot more views for my videos lately. And please